So hold on a second. There you go. So the recording's happening. The slides and the recording will be available after. We are encouraging questions, so we appreciate the fact that everyone's on mute right now. But as questions come up, please feel free to put them in the chat box, unmute yourself, and jump right in. And we do have staff on hand who will be watching out for messages that come up in the chat that I'm not able to see. I would like to take a minute to introduce the other staff that are on the call. We have Martin, who is one of our community impact associates. He works with our grants team. And then Mark is our community impact manager, also works on our grants team. And Mark and Martin both also work with Found It. So if you have questions in terms of accessing our system and working with the online application, those would be the two gentlemen to turn to. And so if you are having any technical difficulties during the course of this call, we do have Mark's contact information there on the screen. And Mark, if you wouldn't mind adding that to the chat in case anybody has any issues, that would be fantastic. All right, so let's jump right in and talk about this Food Insecurity Grant program. So for our agenda today, we are going to be talking about some of the basics around this grant opportunity. We're going to be diving into some of the application components, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what the timeline looks like for all of this. So in terms of the basics, many of you know us at the Community Foundation. We are a private 501c3 organization. We work with donors in the community who start funds with us, and we give out those funds back to the community for charitable purposes through scholarships and grants. And it's our goal to make sure Frederick's the best possible place to be. For this particular grant opportunity, this is actually a new one for us. So it's going to look different from your end as an applicant, and it looks different from our end as the grant maker. So these funds actually are federal in nature. So they come from the American Rescue Plan. The ARPA funds were given to the county through coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds. The county has signed an MOU with us, and so we're offering this Food Insecurity Grant program. And so applicants who receive awards through this program or receive grants through this program are going to be subgrantees with the Community Foundation for these federal grants. And so if our application looks a little different than most people are used to, then that's because we have more people interested and more people looking at the applications than we usually do. Next piece, some of the more important things to think about within the application. These are some of the basics. So we have up to $350,000 available in funding. We're asking that organization ask for a minimum of $5,000. There isn't a maximum request. However, do be mindful that there are a number of people on this call and organizations in the community that will be asking for funding. If you do request a full $350,000, please note that it should be a program of that's extraordinary in nature. If you are interested in talking more about what might be an average or a good fit for your organization in terms of an ask, please contact me afterwards and we can have that conversation, because it will really depend on a case-by-case basis. Please also note that we're only accepting one application per organization. You cannot submit multiple requests. If you are an organization that's working with another organization on a joint project and you would also like to submit a project for yourself, that's something that we can talk about, but that's something that that's a little bit different in nature. Please also note another important thing is that this is a single-year non-renewable source of funding. So we've been told multiple times this is a one-time gig. So these are funds available for FY24 and FY24 only. Again, the application will be open during the month of April, and late applications will not be accepted. So you'll need to submit online before midnight on the 30th. Any questions so far? Okay. So to be eligible to receive these funds, you need to be a 501c3 in good standing. You need to be a civic organization working on a charitable project, a religious organization doing a non-sectarian project, or quasi or governmental agency that is, and you're looking for dollars that are for a project that's not supported by tax dollars. These are our typical eligible organization categories. Also, typically, in order to be a 501c3 in good standing, it means you're in compliance with 3 different regulations. You have your federal regulations. So with the IRS, have you filed your annual 990s? We'll be checking on that. And then with the Maryland Department of Assessment and Taxation, there's an annual report that you have to file. It's usually due between April and June each year. And then with the Maryland Secretary of State, you have to be registered as a charity, and then you have to file your annual report each year, because this just lets the state of Maryland know that you are an organization that is asking for money from people for charitable projects within the state of Maryland. And if you have any questions about any of that, or how to check on whether or not you are in compliance with any of these things, please let us know. We also have information about this on our website. So one of the big pieces to note for these grants is that they're pretty open in terms of what eligible expenses are. So it can be general operating for food insecurity programs. And so it's a program within a larger organization. It's specifically for operating for that particular program. If you are a food insecurity program, like that's the only thing that you do, it's kind of general operating funds for your organization. It can include staff salaries, and it can include food and food packaging supplies. It can also include food storage and transportation. And these are capital purchases like refrigerators, freezers, vehicles, that sort of thing. However, and this is a big however, there is going to be a reasonableness test within the application as the grant committee is reviewing this. So it kind of is a 3-part thing. So does the request make sense for your mission and your scope of services? So if you're an historical preservation organization that is requesting money for a food insecurity program, we're going to have questions, because that's going to seem like it's outside of your scope and outside of your mission. So just keep that in mind. If this is something that is not if food insecurity is not a project that your organization typically works on, there needs to be a reason why you're now getting into that particular scope of work, and not just because there's money available. Additionally, you have to think about whether or not the amount that you're requesting is right sized for the project or program. Specifically, when it comes to a vehicle, something like a vehicle, it's a very tangible object. If you are a multi-service organization and that vehicle is going to be used for a number of different projects, you can't ask for the full 100% cost of that vehicle just from this source. So if you have a multi-service organization and 10% of the time of that vehicle is going to be used to support the food program, then you can ask for 10% of the vehicle costs. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. Also think about if you're a new program getting into food services or food projects, asking to outfit a full commercial kitchen right off the bat when you haven't served any clients probably isn't a realistic request under this grant opportunity. You really want to think about what is the next logical step for your organization or your project, and what fiscal supports you need for that. And then the last part of the reasonable test is it sustainable? So again, this is going to be one-time funding. So if you're asking to expand services, if you're asking to start something new, if you're asking for a vehicle or anything else that's going to have continued costs past the end of the grant period, then you're going to need to know, then you're going to need to show within the application what sort of plans you have to sustain that project or program or piece after this grant funding ends. So at that point, that's kind of like the basics. Before we go into any of the specific application components, do people have questions about the basics? No. Okay. So let's talk about things that are going to be specifically within the application. So one of the things that's going to be in there is that you're going to have to provide a project description. And there are 2 things that we need to know about your project. We want to know what it is. So what's the project that you're seeking funding for? And then we want to know how this grant will help your organization alleviate food insecurity. And so specifically, we know that everyone applying to this under this application wants to alleviate hunger. So what is your purpose for your organization to apply for this grant? What are you doing? Are you doing temporary relief for crisis situations like one-touch bags of food or meals? Are you doing long-term systemic work in terms of alleviating hunger? What's the purpose for your organization? What are you going to be doing to alleviate hunger, and how is this money going to help you? That's really what we want to know in your project description. So you can think of it, if you're storytelling, this is like a first date. This is the first date questions, like who are you? Who am I? How long have I been around? What are we up to? And what are our goals in life? So another piece of the application, we're going to be asking you about your demographics. And this is where we get into numbers. Who are you serving? How many people? What are the demographics of the people that you're serving? How much food are you giving them? How often are you giving it to them? And how many, and you're counting all of the things. Like, is it pounds of foods? Is it meals served? If it's meals delivered, if it's, this is where we want to know all the widgets and the gadgets and the outputs that your organization is providing. And so the more numbers, the better when it comes to these particular questions on the application. So we're also going to ask questions about impact and evaluation on the application. So how do you know that you're making a difference? So obviously, if you give someone food, it's going to alleviate hunger for them at the time. Are there things that you're doing to see if you're making a difference in the life of this individual? And are there any tools that you're using? Are you talking to your clients at all? Are you surveying them at all? Are you including them in any conversations about the program at all? And this is going to look different depending on the scope of the program, because there are going to be lots of programs that are on this call that are one-touch programs, and there's going to be a limited amount of information that you can provide about the clients and their input into the program. And then there are other programs that have a deeper relationship with the people that they're serving, and we would expect deeper evaluation impact information from those particular client or with those particular organizations. Additionally, if you're just starting a new project, or if you're just starting a new type of evaluation, you're just starting a new tool to measure your evaluation products, please let us know about that. Just say we don't have a lot of existing statistics. We're just starting to measure this. We're just starting to realize what we can measure, what we can't measure, and so we're trying this out. Or we tried this other thing out and it didn't work so well. This is what we know so far, and so now we're trying this other thing out. It's okay to have that conversation within the application. We don't need you to be a scientific research paper with quoted stats in this area. This is really just describing how you as your organization handle your relationship with your clients and figuring out how you're impacting the people that you're serving. So additionally, within the application, we're going to be asking about equity. And there, you can think of equity in 3 different ways. And so within the application, and this is part of the story that you're serving. So one of the ways that you can think about equity is in terms of the population served. And so these are the people that you're touching within the program. And I know for a fact, looking at the names that are on here, every single one of your programs, every single one of the individuals that are on this call, anyone could show up at your door and say that they're hungry and you would serve them. Like, there's no doubt about that. We're not talking about equity in that way. We're talking about equity in the way of helping provide equity in access, equity in opportunity, equity in ability to be served. And so in terms of the population served, you know that within Frederick County, we have about 25 to 35% of our population are people of color, but you know that within your organization and the work that you do and your food insecurity programs, about 85% of the people that you serve, and this is an example of made up numbers, 85% of the people you serve are from communities of color. And so that is a way that the population you're serving is part of a disenfranchised community, and you're creating additional access for people who have been disproportionately affected by all of the things to provide food security. Does that make sense? And that can be for LGBTQ, that could be religious-based, that could be ability-based. It could be geographic location. We know that poverty and access and transportation is a burden within the rural parts of the county, specifically north and west and south of the county. Within the county, we know that there are other populations that can be disproportionately affected by hunger, children, people who are homeless, that sort of thing. So you need to think about the populations that you're serving, and if there's any way within, and is your program serving any of those disenfranchised communities and providing support there. Another way to look at equity is about inclusion and leadership efforts that your organization is doing. And this is that idea of nothing for me without me. So are you including your clients or people that you've served or people that are impacted by hunger within your leadership efforts? So are they part of advisory committees? Are they part of your frontline staff? Are they part of your board? Are they a part of any efforts to shape or inform the work that you're doing? Additionally, the other piece is part of equity is about the service practices that you're implementing, and are you creating access? So this could be providing culturally expansive food choices within your pantry or within your meals. It could be offering translation services within your organization for people who have language barriers. It could be providing food to children and to individuals who are unsheltered, that don't require any utensils or cooking, or are easy open access, so that those individuals can still eat even though they don't have access to things that like kitchen utensils and microwaves and stoves and things and pots and pans that they would need to cook some of the other food pantry items. So does that make sense in terms of the things that we're going to be looking for in our question around equity? So, well, this training could be very quick if there aren't going to be any questions, but we're going to keep going. And so also within the application, there are going to be two different types of financial information that we're going to be asking for. There's a project budget and there's organizational financial statements. So the project budget, really, this is looking forward. So this is an estimate of what's going to happen in the future during the grant period. We want to know about your expected revenues and we want to know about your expected expenses. So what's the money coming in the door that's going to help you pay for the programs, and then what are you going to spend that money on to make these programs happen? For the organizational financial statements, this is really looking at the financial history of your organization. And it's really looking at the most recently ended fiscal year and what your financial outlook looked like for your organization at that time. And there are three different levels of looking back that we would expect within the application. If your organization has contributions of over $750,000, your organization would need to submit a audit in order to be qualified for a grant. And this is an independent review where they go into the details of your books to make sure everything aligns with general accounting practices. If your organization has between $300,000 and $750,000, oh, I'm missing a zero there, sorry, $750,000 in revenues, then you're going to need an independent review. So this is an independent CPA, somebody outside of your board, somebody outside of your organization, takes a look at your books and says, yeah, it all looks like you're making the accounting steps necessary to reconcile everything, the money coming in, the money going out through your organization. And then if your organization has less than $300,000 in revenue, then there's a financial statement that you'll have access to through our website or through the application that will allow you to fill out some basic information about what has happened for your finances during the last fiscal year for your organization. So any questions about budgets or organization financial statements? No? Okay. General tips for the application. Within the narrative pieces of the application, we've tried to open up those narratives so that you have as many characters as the software will allow, which means you have up to 10,000 characters. Please don't use 10,000 characters for every single question. We know that you want to tell the grants committee all about the work that you're doing, but please also know that you can say things very concisely and our grants committee will understand. So really use the space when it's needed to be able to convey your point, but you're welcome to be as concise as you need to be in order to convey the scope and the depth and the impact of your program. So second piece is when in doubt, add numbers and trends. You want to know, you're really looking at impact and scope. You want to know how much, how many, what percentages, those sorts of things. And we also know that programs that serve smaller numbers of people can be very impactful in terms of where they're serving, who they're serving, how they're serving. So don't think more is better. Just know that we need to see those numbers, we need to see those trends. And last but not least, be realistic. We know that no one on this call or no one who's going to submit an application is going to save the world with a $25,000 grant from the Community Foundation. We know that we're all working together to try and make Frederick the best place possible. So just be realistic in terms of the scope of the services you are providing, are going to provide, and the ways in which your organization can engage in those services and measure those services, and the impact that those services are going to have. So what's next? Let's talk about that timeline. So April 30th, the application closes. Between May 1st and May 31st, there's going to be staff and our grants committee are going to review the applications. Staff, just to be clear, we have threshold reviews. So are you in compliance with the IRS and the state? Have you attached all the things that you're supposed to attach? And are you actually providing food insecurity grant programs? Like if you apply for funding for your arts program, we won't move that application forward. And then our volunteer grants committee are the ones that are actually going to make the recommendations on which organizations and which projects to fund. And then those particular recommendations are going to be approved by our board of trustees. And by the end of June, you will know if you've received this grant or not. The grant year will begin on July 1st of this year, 2023. At the end of July, your grant agreements will be due, and this will be very important. So the grant year begins July 1, but you will likely not receive your money until August or September. And just count on the end of September, just to be clear. So there will be a quarter of your program year where you will not have the money yet. And so either you need to be able to spend the money or pause the program until you receive the money, or you will need to have the cash on hand to be able to run the program until this grant disbursement is made. And so this is just the nature of the program, of the fact that we don't have the money on hand right now. The county has not given that to us because they don't know what we're going to be spending the money on. So we have to go through our full approval process, then tell the county who we want the money to go to. The county sends it to us, and then we send it out to you guys. So it's a process. So we're sorry that this is coming so late within the grant year. We usually try and get that out at at least within the first month of the grant year. But this time it's going to come towards the end of the quarter. And then in January of 2024, there's going to be an interim report due. June 30th of 2024 is the last day of the grant period. And then in August, there's going to be a final report for those that get funded. So that's it. So that's all I have to tell you. I love to answer questions. I'm seeing some folks on the call that may be newer to our grant process. So I may have skipped some things that were really important to you to understand. So please feel free to jump in with questions. I'd love to help answer those right now.
Diana, there's one in chat.
Okay. In August, September, would we receive the full allotment? Yes. So you will receive all of the dollars up front. The one exception to that is if you are a civic organization that's not a 501c3, you would need to spend the money and we would reimburse you for those funds, because that's just a special little IRS regulation around that. But I think most people on this call are representing 501c3s, so that shouldn't be an issue. It's also possible if you are looking to make a capital purchase like a vehicle or a you're going to be ordering items, refrigerators, those sorts of things. We can also work with you to pay that third-party vendor rather than pay you and then have you pay the vendor. It really just depends on what works for your organization. And Deborah, I see that you have a hand up.
Yes, I am just wondering if we are partnering with another organization.
Yes.
I take it that the information that we put in for the grant application must be inclusive of both ourselves and our partner organization. Is that correct?
So you can think about it in two ways. So if you're partnering with an organization, there's one organization that's going to receive the money. So that is the fiscal sponsor for the organization. So for that organizational financial information, you're going to want the fiscal sponsor information. So we know that the organization that we're giving the money to is the one that we need to know what your books look like whether or not people are throwing up their hands and going, oh no, this organization is like cutting corners and embezzling funds. Like, we need to know that before we give you the money. Okay. But in terms of the project information, like there's a project budget, you would show both organizations at that time. Like, this money is going to support these activities at these two different places. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Diana?
Yes, Nancy.
Yes, I'm with the National Ovarian Cancer Coalition,
Yes,
and we serve all of Maryland. We have a lot of survivors in the Frederick area, but we don't have like our own finances here in Maryland. It's all done through our national office. Would we not, and what we do is when survivors are in treatment, we provide meals for them. Do you think that would eliminate us from this grant?
Not necessarily. So we certainly have organizations that either have a state or national headquarters that's outside of Frederick. The organizational information would obviously reflect whatever the parent organization is. I think the important thing would be in the project description to just list the expenses that would be applied towards those Frederick County residents, and then also be able to explain quite clearly in the project description how you're able to target Frederick County residents only.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. So, any other questions? So I'm going to stop sharing for a second here. So that is the scope of the training. Again, the application will open April 1st. And Willie, to your question, yes, we will be sending out the recording of the application or the training, and we'll also have the slides available. And I encourage you during the course of April, if you have any questions, if you want to know how your program fits, if you're interested in talking about size of budget, scope of work, any of those sorts of things, please feel free to give me a call or to email me. Actually, email is the best way to get a hold of me. I'm in and out of the office quite frequently. And we'd love to read your applications. So we're excited about this grant opportunity and what it can mean for Frederick County. We appreciate you being here. Okay, oh, there's another question. Oh, so Jennifer, great question. She wants to know if this is an application where we can start and stop, or does it have to be done in all one sitting? So the online application is one where you can start and stop. You can come back to it as many times as you would like to. And so if you have any trouble with accessing the application or creating a profile for yourself online or for your organization, we would be happy to have we'd be happy to work with you on that. And again, Mark is going to be your primary point person for that. And then Martin is also going to be helping out. We will have a link to the application on our website. And hold on one second. I'm going to get something for you. There is, so don't click on it yet because they're still working on it. Sorry, this all happened very quickly for us. So there's a direct link there, frederickcountygives.org/food insecurity. That's going to link directly to the page for that is going to describe the Food Insecurity Grant Program and provide a direct link to the online profile. So give us about 24 hours before that gets posted.
And Diana, can you resend the link? I don't think it went to everyone.
Oh, I think you're right. Looks like I just sent it to Willie. Sorry, Willie. Gonna send it to everyone in the meeting. Okay. So did it come through this time?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So are there any additional questions at this time?
Hi.
Yes.
If for some chance that all the grants submitted does not meet or exceed 350,000, will you go back to the organizations that projects that could be expanded upon? Or
You know, that's actually a really good question. So we haven't come up with a contingency plan because we have yet to offer a grant that doesn't exceed, where the requests don't exceed the amount of money we have available. So stay tuned. I don't know what we will do in
Okay.
that case. So
Okay.
we'll have to think about that.
okay, thanks.
So, and also something to note that we will provide partial funding. So it's not an all or nothing sort of thing. So if you submit a grant for $50,000, it's possible that you could be awarded 30,000 instead of 50. We will take the grants committee will look to see if it would still be an impactful grant. So if you ask for $50,000, we're not going to give you $5,000 because we know that that's not the same scope at all, unless there's some indication that any sort of funding would be impactful for your program. But so Allie, to your point, there will be possibility for looking at applications and providing partial payments or partial grants. Okay. Well, this is great, everyone. Thank you for being here. Again, keep us in mind. Let us know what your questions are once the grant application is open. And we look forward to reading your application in May.
Thank you so
Take care,
much.
everyone. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. So Mark and Martin, will you stay on for a second?
Yep.
Thanks.
I
So-
just want to stop recording.
Yes, that's actually a
Good call.
great idea.